Working with crosstabs in Crystal reports is related to setting up pivot tables in Microsoft Excel. This is because the two features serve a similar purpose, namely to break down financial or other numbers by some kind of criterion. So as with pivot tables, we'll need to have an idea of what we're breaking down and why. For this example, we'll pull sales totals from our database and break the numbers down by employee and state. We'll start by creating a blank report. You can go to File to New and click on Blank Report, as we usually do. And we'll connect to the database, which I happen to have on my desktop here. And in the database, we need two tables. We need the table of orders for the actual order data, and we need the table of employees so that we can get their names rather than their numbers. Once I've double-clicked those, I have to go up and click the Links tab, because I have to tell the two tables how I want them to communicate with each other. I can make the tables taller here, and I can connect via the employee ID number, something they both have in common. Then I can OK out of the box. The next thing is I want to actually filter down a bit and get just the orders for the United States. So I'll go to the Select Expert here in the third row of Tools, give the click on the button, and specify that I want the table of orders data for ship country. Find that in here, give a click OK, and then the program will ask, well, which country? So go to the drop down and specify is equal to, need that one particular operator. Go to the drop down over here. I could type it in if I wish, but I'll just go ahead and select USA. I can do the hide formula, show formula if I want to make sure the code is good, and then click OK here. Creating the crosstab itself doesn't even need to go in the details section. Nothing needs to go there at all. We can just throw the thing right into, say, the report header if we only need to see it the once anyway. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit so we can work a little more comfortably up in that space. And we'll go to the Insert menu, and we can find Crosstab about halfway down. Give a click. We just have to position the gold box where we want to actually insert the crosstab. And since we only need it, as I said, to show up once, we can put it in the report header by just clicking there. The next thing is, if the crosstab expert doesn't show up, right-click in the upper left corner of the crosstab and bring up the crosstab expert in the pop-up menu. Once we have it there, we can place the fields for the layout. And what we want first is the order amounts. That's the thing we're going to summarize. So we find order amount. We can drag it right over, make life simple. Position it there. Program assumes we want to do a sum rather than an average or something else. Then we'll find ship region, scroll down a bit here, and drag that into the space for the rows. So we're breaking down the order amounts by region, in this case by state. And then we'll go up to the table of employees, which we brought in and connected, and we'll go ahead and grab the employee's last name field so we can have that up at the top of the crosstab. And then, although we're not done yet, we'll click OK. And if we now go to the View menu and click on Print Preview, we'll see that our crosstab is there. The basic structure is good. Just have to do a little cleanup, a few refinements. It's pretty normal when we create crosstabs. For one thing, we might want to change the orientation of the paper. Why? Well, right now we're in portrait orientation, and we can see that I have quite a bit of the crosstab sitting on the next page over. So if I go to the File menu and click on Page Setup, I can jump right over to the orientation and tell it we want it to go to landscape. Save ourselves a little paper there. Click OK. It's still too wide, but we're getting there. We have a little more room on the paper this way. Now, another example of something that relates to money numbers is we may not need the decimal places. And we can just right-click on whichever of the numbers here, and go to Format Field, and specify that we want to use whichever style, as long as we don't want the decimals there. Using the fourth style here would probably work pretty well. And we just have to do it for each of the subsections, as it were, of the crosstab. You can see there are 4 separate areas of interest. And again, it's just a matter of right-clicking on each and telling the program which style we want to use. Technically, we could use any style with any of the areas, but we'll stick with the same one for each to keep it simple and consistent. And now we've rounded to the nearest dollar and kept everything reasonably neat. Another thing that might not be necessary here, for this example anyway, is the first row and the first column, which contain totals. If we want to focus on just the individual employee data and not any totals, even if we're in the preview, we can right-click at the upper left corner of the crosstab and bring up the crosstab expert again. And what we now need to do is go to the 3rd tab at the top of the box, Customize Style, because at the bottom right of that tab, we can go down here to the Suppress checkboxes and tell the program that we can suppress, meaning don't show, the row and the column grand totals. Since we are assuming for this example we don't need those, we can turn the check marks on and click OK. We're almost done. The only other thing we might want to do is maybe squeeze the widths of the columns down a bit. But since we now have only one kind of information here, that is the individual order numbers for each employee and each state, we can click any one of these numbers and we can see that we'll affect all of the numbers if we simply maneuver over here very carefully, get the right side sizing handle, drag it to the left a couple of notches, and there we are. And the crosstab now fits on just the one piece of paper. Basic but useful crosstab. It may not be as loaded with information as it could be, but it does answer the question we started with. What are the sales numbers by employee and state? This is obviously just the beginning of the story, but the fundamentals we've seen here are pretty much the same no matter how simple or complex the crosstab needs to be or what the data sources might be. The same question always starts the process. What do we want to learn, and how do we break down the data to learn it? That's always your basic guideline with crosstabs in Crystal Reports.